Hi, I'm Allison Naylor, a success advisor here at Johnson Community College. Many of you may not know me, as I had only been a part of the Jaguar family for about 5 months when the campus shut down back in March. While new to JCC, I'm not new to the NC Community College world. I have 7 years of experience advising students in a number of different programs. Today I'm here to talk about connecting with students while we're advising from a distance. This past year, our lives have changed drastically. Our day to day social interactions, from meetings to classes to even birthday parties, have been moved online. Academic advising went from a face to face conversation to screen on platforms like Zoom, Skype, and even phone or email. Virtual interactions can be hard. You miss those facial cues and other body language that can help us read one another. It can be more difficult to make a connection. A student's connection to the campus, to the members of the campus, is critical to their success. So our virtual conversations are more important than ever. By the end of today's presentation, I hope that you'll have a better understanding of the importance of connecting with students and building rapport through the act of academic advising. I hope that you leave with specific resources and strategies for engaging with students to help build those connections across all modes of communication. So, why is advising so important? Isn't it just helping a student pick classes? Maybe that's what it used to be, but academic advising is much more dynamic. Take a look at the concept of academic advising as presented by NACADA, the Global Community for Academic Advising. What words stick out to you? How do those words relate to what you do as an instructor, an administrator, or staff member? Teaching, learning, motivating, and engaging. These are things that we might associate with what goes on in the classroom, but they can and should be happening in advising sessions as well. They can happen in any interaction, big or small, that any faculty or staff member may have with a student. Let's take a look at what a transactional advising session looks like.
Hi, Miss Smith. I am here for my advising appointment.
Hi, Jen. Please have a seat. How can I help you today?
I want to know which classes to take next semester.
Great. What is your program?
I want to apply for the nursing program next year.
It looks like you need chemistry in the nurse aid course. You also could take Intro to Ethics.
Okay, which should I take first?
How about chemistry and ethics? You could do nurse aid in the spring by itself.
That sounds good. Can I register now?
Yes. Feel free to use the computers in the lobby. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it. Bye.
Now, I know that may be a little exaggerated, but this is a great example of a transactional, prescriptive advising conversation. There was no deep dive, no exploration. Some conversations have to be transactional. Not every interaction with a student is going to be a life changing event. However, in the early stages of our move online, I found it very easy to fall into this type of conversation, especially when speaking with students on the phone. Virtual conversations may be difficult for students. I found myself having many one sided conversations, even when I was asking probing questions. Students are here for the purpose of finding out what classes they need to take. They don't have a concept of the fact that diving in and finding out more about them is an important part of the process of academic planning. That's why it's important to utilize relational and communication techniques to have a more meaningful conversation. So, while prescriptive conversations are sometimes necessary, they shouldn't be the majority of the conversations that we as advisors are having with students. When we look at advising as a function, like teaching, we bring back those ideas that we associate with the classroom: motivating, engaging. In the classroom, an instructor doesn't always give the student the answer. The instructor teaches the student the skills that they need so that they can determine the answer themselves. Advisors teach students how to navigate the college, their curriculum, and how to determine their educational path. There are many theories of academic advising, and each institution and each advisor bring those theories together to build their own advising philosophies. Institutions that support advising as teaching report greater success in their students and better retention rates. So, how does that relate to building connections with students? Well, in order for them to allow us to be teachers, there has to be trust. Trust depends on building that relationship. The relationship between students and advisors is a key to their connection to the campus. Advising may be one of the most consistent touch points that they have, especially since it is required for all students. Think about our population of students. They come from all walks of life. They may be first generation, juggling other responsibilities. They may be low income. English may not be their first language. This upcoming semester, they may be juggling work, homeschooling their children. There are so many things on their plate other than just being a student. Often our students have one foot on campus and the other foot out in their life, and at any point they may need to run, dropping classes, failing classes, etc. The connection with an advisor helps to keep that one foot on campus. They know we have the information to help them, and they know if we don't have the answer, we know where to go to find it. Vince Tinto proposed that the desire to drop out results from students' feeling of isolation, caused by lack of interaction within the academic environment that results in unmet personal needs and unattended interests. This is why the advising relationship is so important. They need to feel like they have someone in their corner that they trust, that is knowledgeable. And it's more important than ever with the sudden move to an online format for many students. So, what can you do? Whether you are an advisor or not, consider the following suggestions as we take a look at our virtual interactions with students. Think about this past fall advising cycle. How did virtual work for you? What did you like best? Was it the same as what students gravitated towards? At this point, I can imagine we're pretty zoomed out. No matter your platform of choice, we've all taken part in more video meetings than we probably ever thought possible. And I know some are not a big fan of video, but video provides a space to build connections with students in a way that phone and email do not. Advising over video platforms like Zoom, Skype, or Teams is great because it's almost as good as a face to face meeting. Almost. You can read facial and body language cues. The student can get a peek into your world, and that ultimately helps build rapport. It's similar to how having an office or a desk that's decorated helps the student to see you as just a normal person that they can get to know and that they can trust. It provides conversation pieces that can help break the ice. And it helps you get a feel to see their environment as well. You can ask them about something interesting that you might see in their background. For example, my cat likes to jump on the table and walk across a laptop at the most inopportune times. When that happens, the student and I might have a laugh about it, and they will probably tell me about a pet that they have. And before we know it, we're setting a foundation for a relationship. Video advising tends to keep a student more focused. They're more likely to sit down in their home at a computer and participate actively in the conversation. If they're actively engaging, then there's a greater chance that you can build that connection. When you're on the phone, the student may see the conversation as just another transaction they need to get to the next step. Just this past advising cycle, I had a student on the phone. She stopped me in the middle of my explanation about how long it could possibly take to get into the sonography program. She says, hold on just one second. I need to order a slushie. Video provides a greater chance that the student you're speaking to is hopefully paying attention and not in line at the fast food place getting a slushie. Some ways you can engage with students over video include having an interesting background, whether it's your actual home or office, or you use one of those green screen backgrounds on Zoom that can make you look like you're under the ocean or on the moon. Most importantly, make sure you put your students at ease. not just about the academic conversation, but about the technology piece as well. If they have a good experience over video, then they're probably more likely to choose that format in the future. Make sure that you have your profile picture set on whatever platform you're using. So if video isn't usable, then the student can at least still put a face to the name. And just be aware, some students may not feel comfortable with being on video, and that's okay. Video advising is still a great option for the screen sharing capabilities alone. If a student feels uncomfortable using video, just put them at ease about it. They may not be in an area where they feel video is appropriate, or they just may not feel comfortable letting you into their home. Phone advising is probably more common. It seems our students feel most comfortable with the phone format. It allows for convenience for them, and it's more accessible for those students that may not have access to Wi Fi or video platforms. But as I mentioned before, the focus isn't always there. However, phone conversations can still be useful in building connections. And take time to build those connections. I know our time's limited, but make sure to ask about the student, especially during these times. How are they doing? Are classes going well? But also maybe something personal. Do they have plans? What have they done in their free time lately? Anything to sort of start up a conversation and break the ice. And once you engage them in conversation, they may be more likely to open up to you and continue to be engaged as you start talking about their academic plans. Look for those questions behind the question. It can be a little bit harder to tell a student's mood or how they're feeling over the phone. But consider if they ask, when is the last day to drop, for example, rather than just telling them the answer, consider asking a probing question to determine why they asked about dropping to begin with. It could be that they have a concern about payment or something else is going on in their life that you could maybe make a referral for or give them some suggestions for how to deal with. Phone advising is also a good time to try to clarify what the student is saying by paraphrasing and repeating things back to them. Ask, so what you're saying is, this way there's less of a chance that anyone's misunderstood or that all questions are not answered. Make sure that you use your voice to convey feeling and interest. Since they cannot see you, what they hear from you is very important. If you sound bored or tired, then they might assume that you don't care to be speaking with them. It's also important to consider the words that you choose. If a student cannot see a look of concern on your face or in your body language when you say, I see that you failed your science class, they may hear judgment or think you're chastising them. Carefully choosing your words will show you care and are trying to help them. Maybe saying, so tell me a little bit about the science class you took last semester. Or begin with the positive. Wow, you did really well in English. What did you do differently in that class compared to your science class? And make sure to pause. We can't see if a student may have more to say over the phone or if maybe they're thinking about what has been said. So give them time to process the conversation and to get out all of their questions. And just have patience in general. Have patience if they're juggling all those other responsibilities we talked about. If their dog is barking, if there's a baby crying, or if they ask you to repeat things. Email advising isn't really traditional advising. We wouldn't typically complete an entire advising session over email. However, during this time, email may be the easiest way to communicate. It is a convenient way to get quick questions answered and to clarify things that have already been said in perhaps a phone or video advising session. It's also a great tool for following up with students. Don't treat student emails as another email you have to get out of your inbox quickly. Give each email the same time and consideration you would a phone call or an appointment. Use greetings and have conversation. Ask, how are you? And again, pay attention to tone. It's very easy to misinterpret the intention behind written words. Anticipate the student's needs. They may email you one sentence, Think about the other questions they will have when you answer that one question. This can save you time in the back and forth and help answer questions they may not have known they had. If a student asks, "What is a payment deadline?" you might want to send them information on the deadline, as well as the payment plan and how to find their financial aid status. If there is back and forth, don't be afraid to move the conversation to the phone. Once you get to a certain point, it may save everyone time to have a quick 5-minute phone call rather than write 10 emails. I really like to use email as a follow up tool to my video and phone conversations. After each session with a new student, I send a follow up email with important links and reminders about what we discussed. I have a Google Doc with templates, and I just copy and paste and change a few things to personalize it. You can also use follow up with other students as well. Maybe a student said something that piqued your interest but didn't have time to deep dive. Maybe you can use the delayed delivery in your email to write out and send it later. I also keep a spreadsheet of students I interact with, and I have a notes section. I use that to list things that concern me or things I want to follow up on. At the end of the month, I go through the list and see if there's anyone I might should send an email to just to check in. Like a student I met with in June who was struggling in their summer classes. At the time, I made referrals to tutoring and we discussed study skills. I emailed them a few weeks after our meeting to see how their classes were going and to see if they utilized tutoring. This helps build that relationship. Let them know that you care. So, what is next? If you aren't an advisor, I hope you can still take these suggestions and use them in your work. Consider how you interact with students. How can you connect with simple questions? Can you anticipate the student's needs? If they say something that concerns you, but maybe isn't in your area, suggest they speak to someone that is an expert in that area. If you are an advisor, think about your last advising conversation. Was it more transactional? Or did you get to dive deeper with that student? Do you consider advising a teaching function? If not, how can you use the skills from the classroom to make your advising more meaningful for both you and the student? To get started, just try one or two tips. You don't have to reinvent how you advise in one day. Determine what works for you. Each advisor has their own unique style and personality. Our students are unique, so it's good to have that variety for them. Maybe you like to joke around. Use humor as a connection builder. Maybe you're more introverted like me. Think about icebreaker questions you could ask a student in advance. Or maybe look to their past advising forms to see if there's any topics that you might want to speak to them about that were noted in those advising forms from a past advising session. Try to be aware, at least, of whether your advising is prescriptive or transactional. Sometimes it may need to be transactional, but definitely contemplate in those situations that you find yourself giving out that prescriptive information if there's anything you could do differently next time. Or if a video or phone call felt one sided, maybe follow up with an email to let the student know you're here for them in case they do want to open up a little bit more. I hope you found this information helpful and at least a good place to start with considering the types of interactions that you have with students, especially as we're speaking to them from a distance. Do you have any questions? Feel free to contact me. Building connections with students is one of my favorite parts of working in the community college system, so I'd love to chat with you about anything that was discussed today. When I'm on campus, you can find me in the Student Success Center in the TARP building in Office D116. I can be reached by email a_Naylor@johnsonCC.edu, or you can give me a call at 919-464-2461. I also have provided a PDF of the resources used and some further reading and tips if you're interested.